Wait, Sienna's voice cracked across the engagement party, silencing 50 guests mid-conversation. I need to say something. My son Garrett took her hand, thinking this was part of the celebration. His face glowed with joy. Kenneth, my husband of 28 years, stood beside them with champagne raised, his smile beginning to freeze. I can't do this, Sienna whispered, then louder, clearer, I can't marry you, Garrett. Confusion rippled through the crowd. My son's face crumbled. What? Why? And then she said it. The words that would detonate our entire world, because I've been sleeping with your father. Welcome back to Voice of Auntie Kattie, family. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because the stories I share aren't just entertainment, they're lessons wrapped in truth. And to my beautiful subscribers who keep coming back, thank you. Your support means the world to me. Before we begin, let me say a quick prayer for you. Bow your heads with me, wherever you are. Heavenly Father, I thank you for every person listening to my voice right now. I pray for strength in their struggles, wisdom in their decisions, and peace in their hearts. Whatever battle they're facing today, Lord, remind them that they are stronger than they know. Protect their families, bless their finances, and surround them with people who truly love them. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, let's get into this story. Because what you're about to hear isn't just about betrayal, it's about a woman who discovered her husband was sleeping with their son's fiancée, and how she burned their world down so carefully, they didn't even see the flames until it was too late. My name is Patricia Holloway, and I'm 52 years old. For 28 years, I thought I knew my husband, Kenneth. We met when I was 24, finishing my nursing degree at Virginia Commonwealth University. He was 26, working construction during the day and building his own company at night. The first time I saw him, he was covered in drywall dust, arguing with a supplier about lumber prices outside the hardware store where I'd stopped to buy paint for my apartment. He had calloused hands, dirt permanently wedged under his fingernails, and a laugh that could fill an entire room. When he smiled at me across the parking lot, something in my chest just settled. Like I'd been holding my breath for years without knowing it. You need help carrying that, he called out, pointing to the paint cans in my cart. I'm a nurse, I replied. I lift 200-pound patients. I think I can handle some paint, he laughed, then that big, warm sound. A nurse who does her own painting. I think I'm in love. We got married 18 months later in a small ceremony at his mother's church. No honeymoon because we were saving every dollar to launch his construction company. Kenneth worked 18-hour days, and I picked up night shifts at the hospital so we could make payroll for his first crew. 2 years into our marriage, I got pregnant with Garrett. We hadn't planned it. I was on birth control, but apparently God had other ideas. When I told Kenneth, he cried, actual tears streaming down his face, and said, "We're gonna give this kid everything we didn't have," and we did. Or at least, we tried. Garrett was the kind of baby that old ladies stopped you in grocery stores to admire. Big brown eyes, chubby cheeks, and the sweetest disposition you've ever seen. He grew into a thoughtful boy, then a gentle teenager, then a brilliant young man who became a civil engineer by age 30. While Kenneth was blunt and loud, Garrett was measured and kind. While I worried about everything, Garrett approached problems with calm logic. He was better than both of us, and we knew it. That boy's gonna change the world, Kenneth used to say, pride thick in his voice. By the time Garrett turned 30, Kenneth's construction company had grown into something substantial: 3 counties, 40 employees, contracts with major developers. We'd built our dream home ourselves, a sprawling ranch-style house on 2 acres with woods backing up to the property. Kenneth's pride enjoyed. I worked part-time at the hospital by then, mostly because I liked the work, not because we needed the money. Life was comfortable, predictable, safe, and then Garrett met Sienna. It was a Sunday in late September when he first brought her to dinner. The air had just started to cool, and I'd made pot roast, Garrett's favorite since childhood. "Mom, Dad, this is Sienna," he said, his whole face lighting up. "She's a project manager at Morrison Development." The woman who walked into my kitchen was striking in that effortless way some women have. 26 years old, auburn hair that caught the light like polished copper, and green eyes that seemed to look right through you. She wore a simple blue dress and carried a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my entire outfit. "Mrs. Holloway," she said warmly, "Garrett has told me so much about you. Thank you for having me." "Please, call me Patricia," I replied, taking the wine. Any friend of Garrett's is family here. We sat down to dinner, and Sienna charmed us all. She asked intelligent questions about Kenneth's business, laughed at his terrible jokes, and complimented everything from the pot roast to the curtains I'd sewn myself. But there was one moment that stuck with me. Should have been a warning, but I dismissed it like I dismissed everything. Kenneth asked Sienna about a project Morrison Development was working on, and as she answered, I noticed his gaze lingering on her just a fraction too long. Not the way you look at your son's girlfriend. The way a man looks at a woman he finds attractive. When she laughed, Kenneth leaned forward slightly, like he was being pulled by invisible strings. I told myself I was being paranoid. Kenneth had never given me reason to doubt him in 28 years. He was devoted. Loyal. Ours was the marriage other couples envied. So I pushed the observation away and focused on how happy Garrett looked. That's what mattered. The relationship moved too fast, but I didn't see it that way then. Within 3 months, Sienna was at our house every Sunday. Within 6 months, she had a drawer in Garrett's apartment. Within 8 months, my son called me at work, his voice shaking with excitement. Mom, I'm going to propose. Tonight. At Marcello's, the same restaurant where you and Dad had your wedding reception. My eyes filled with tears right there in the hospital break room. Oh, sweetheart. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything, he said. She's it, Mom. She's the one. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Kenneth, listening to him snore, thinking about my baby boy growing up. Getting married. Starting his own family. He proposed, Kenneth mumbled, half asleep. How did you know? I whispered that he asked my permission last week. Wanted to do it the old-fashioned way. Kenneth rolled over, threw an arm across my waist. Our boy's all grown up, Patty. He hadn't called me Patty in years. The next day, Sienna called me, breathless and crying happy tears. Patricia, he asked me. I said yes. I can't believe this is real. Congratulations, sweetheart, I said, genuinely thrilled. Welcome to the family. You have no idea what this means to me, she continued, her voice thick with emotion. I never had a close relationship with my own mother. She passed when I was 19. But you, Patricia, you're everything I always wished for. You're the mother I never had. I cried then, too. Standing in my kitchen with the phone pressed to my ear, crying because I thought God was giving me the daughter I'd always wanted. If I'd known what Sienna Vaughn really was, I would have driven straight to Garrett's apartment and dragged him away from her by his collar, but I didn't know. Not yet. The engagement party was set for a Saturday in mid-June, 6 weeks away. Sienna's parents were flying in from Portland, and we expected about 50 guests total. Close friends, family, some of Kenneth's business associates, a few of Garrett's college buddies. I threw myself into planning with the kind of manic energy only a mother of the groom can muster. I spent 2 weekends stringing lights through the oak trees in our backyard. I ordered tables and chairs, hired caterers, selected a menu that would impress Sienna's parents. I bought a new dress navy blue with small pearl buttons and spent $200 I didn't need to spend because I wanted to look perfect in the photos. Photos of the engagement party I would never attend. At least, not in the way I'd planned. Kenneth was strange during those weeks leading up to the party. Distant. Distracted. He started coming home later than usual, citing project deadlines and site emergencies. But when he walked through the door, he didn't have that bone-deep exhaustion that usually followed 12-hour days. Instead, he seemed wired. Alert, he started going to the gym, something he'd mocked for our entire marriage. Real men get their exercise on job sites, he used to say, laughing at guys who paid money to lift weights. But suddenly, at 54 years old, Kenneth was at the gym 4 mornings a week. He bought new clothes, tighter shirts that showed off his arms, jeans that fit differently. He started using cologne. Midlife crisis, my sister Helen joked when I mentioned it over coffee. Maybe, I replied, stirring sugar into my cup. Or maybe he's just trying to stay healthy. His father died at 60 from a heart attack. Helen studied me over the rim of her mug. You don't sound convinced. I'm not worried, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, something cold settled in my stomach. A whisper of intuition I ignored. I ignored a lot of things. The Thursday before the engagement party, I worked the morning shift at St. Mary's Hospital. We were overstaffed in the cardiac unit, and my supervisor asked if anyone wanted to leave early. I volunteered. I could go home, put my feet up, maybe take a nap before the final party preparations kicked into high gear tomorrow. I pulled into our driveway at 1:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I glanced at the dashboard clock and thought about how rare it was to be home this early on a weekday. Kenneth's truck was parked at an odd angle, like he'd been in a hurry. The front wheels were crooked, one tire half on the grass. That should have been my first clue. Kenneth was meticulous about his truck. It was his baby, detailed every Sunday without fail. I walked up the front steps, fishing keys from my purse. The house was quiet, but not the usual daytime quiet. This was different. Heavy. And then I heard it, music. Low and rhythmic, coming from the back of the house. I set my purse on the kitchen counter, called out, "Kenneth? You home?" No answer. The music grew louder as I moved down the hallway toward our bedroom. Something smooth and jazzy I didn't recognize. Not Kenneth's usual classic rock. The bedroom door was cracked open just a few inches, and through that narrow gap, I saw something that shattered 28 years of trust in less than 5 seconds. Kenneth. On our bed. The quilt my grandmother made, the one with the blue and yellow star pattern she'd spent an entire winter stitching by hand spread beneath them, and Sienna Vaughn. My son's fiancée. Moving above my husband with her head thrown back, auburn hair cascading down her bare spine, making sounds that would echo in my nightmares for months. I didn't scream, I didn't move, I stood frozen in that hallway, hand still on my purse strap, brain refusing to process what my eyes were transmitting. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of hallucination brought on by exhaustion or stress. Or Kenneth's hands gripped Sienna's hips. The same hands that had held Garrett as a newborn. The same hands that had held mine through my father's funeral, through every hard moment of our marriage. His voice, rough and breathless, said her name like a prayer, Sienna. God, Sienna. How long I stood there, I don't know. Seconds. Minutes. Long enough to see him finish. Long enough to watch her collapse against his chest, skin slick with sweat. Long enough to hear them laugh together in the aftermath, that intimate, satisfied sound that lovers make when they think no one's listening. That laughter broke my paralysis. I stepped backward, slowly, carefully. My nursing shoes made no sound on the hardwood floor. I walked back through the kitchen, picked up my purse with hands that didn't feel like my own, and left. I got in my car. Started the engine. And drove, not home, because home had just become a crime scene. I drove to Lake Hartwell, the same lake where Kenneth and I used to take Garrett fishing when he was small. Garrett would squeal with delight every time he caught a sunfish, and Kenneth would ruffle his hair and say, "That's my boy." I parked near the boat launch and sat staring at water that reflected nothing but gray sky. The questions came in waves, each one hitting harder than the last. How long had this been happening? Did Garrett know? Had she seduced Kenneth, or had he pursued her? Did it even matter? The engagement party was in 2 days. 50 guests. Catered food already ordered. My son's joy about to be destroyed. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called the only person I trusted completely. "Helen," I said when my sister answered. My voice sounded hollow, like I was speaking from inside a well. "I need you to come get me." "Where are you?" Immediate concern in her voice. No questions, no hesitation. Lake Hartwell. The north boat launched. I'll be there in 45 minutes. Don't move. Helen found me exactly where I said I'd be, staring at the water. She got out of her car, walked to my passenger window, and tapped gently. I unlocked the door. She slid in beside me. "Tell me," she said simply. So I did. Every horrible detail. The music. The cracked door. What I saw. What I heard. That laughter that wouldn't stop echoing in my head. When I finished, Helen was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You're coming home with me. Right now. We'll figure this out together. I can't just leave." "Yes, you can. And you will. Give me your keys. I'll drive your car. You ride with me." We didn't talk much on the drive to her house an hour away in Richmond. but when we got to her guest room and she closed the door, I finally broke. I cried so hard I vomited into her bathroom trash can. Cried until my throat was raw and my eyes were so swollen I could barely see. Cried for my marriage, for my son, for the life I thought I had that turned out to be a carefully constructed lie. Helen held me through all of it, rubbing my back like I was a child. When I could finally breathe again, she said, "You have to tell Garrett, I know." My voice was hoarse. "But first, I need to understand how deep this goes." Helen pulled back, studying my face. "What do you mean?" I mean, I need to know if this is just sex, or if there's something more. I need evidence. Facts. Because if I go to Garrett with just what I saw, they'll both deny it. They'll make me sound crazy. "You're going to investigate," Helen said slowly. "I'm going to burn their world down," I replied. "But carefully. Strategically. So they have nowhere to hide when the truth comes out." Helen was quiet for a beat. Then she nodded. "Okay. Then let's go to war, family, we're just getting started." Patricia is about to become a detective in her own home, and what she discovers is even worse than the affair itself. But before we continue, do me a favor, hit that like button if you're invested in this story. Drop a comment telling me, would you have confronted them immediately, or would you have investigated first? And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Voice of Auntie Kattie and turn on notifications. I returned home just after midnight. Helen had wanted me to stay longer, but I told her no, I needed to go back while I still had the element of surprise. Kenneth's truck was in the driveway, parked properly this time. All the lights in the house were off except for the dim glow of the television in our bedroom. I used my key quietly, slipped off my shoes in the entryway, and moved through the darkened house like a ghost. When I reached the bedroom, Kenneth was sprawled diagonally across the mattress, snoring, completely oblivious. The quilt, my grandmother's quilt, was crumpled at the foot of the bed. I wanted to set it on fire. Instead, I gathered a pillow and blanket from the linen closet and went to the guest room. I told myself it was because I needed to maintain control, to gather evidence before confrontation. But truthfully, I couldn't bear to be near him. The thought of his skin touching mine made my stomach turn. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, planning my next moves like a general preparing for battle. Morning came too quickly. I heard Kenneth's alarm go off at 6, heard him shuffle to the bathroom, heard the shower run. I waited until I heard his truck start before I got up. I made coffee. Put on my robe. Took 3 deep breaths. When Kenneth walked back in, he'd forgotten his phone. I was sitting at the kitchen table reading the newspaper like it was any other Friday morning. "Hey, you're up early," he said, surprised. "Thought you worked late shift today, changed my schedule," I replied without looking up. Wanted to get some party prep done. Only one more day. He kissed my forehead absently, already scrolling through his phone. "I'll probably be home late tonight. Got a situation at the Riverside site." "Another emergency?" I kept my voice light, conversational. "Yeah, foundation issues. Might take all day to sort out." He poured coffee into a travel mug. "Don't wait up." "I understand," I said. And I did understand. I understood he was lying. I understood exactly where he'd be and who he'd be with. "Love you, Patty," he called out as he headed for the door. I didn't respond. The moment his truck disappeared down the street, I moved. Kenneth's home office was off the living room, a converted sunroom with his desk, filing cabinets, and the computer he used for business. He was meticulous about backing up files to external drives, which meant everything would be there if I knew where to look. The computer password hadn't changed in 10 years, our wedding anniversary. 06/14 to 1997, logged in, hands surprisingly steady, and opened his email. The inbox was organized into folders: projects, invoices, personal, Morrison development. I clicked on personal first, nothing unusual. Birthday reminders, confirmation emails for purchases, spam he hadn't deleted. Then I opened Morrison development. And there it was. The first email from Sienna was dated 4 months ago, 2 weeks after that Sunday dinner when Garrett brought her home. From svon@morrisondev.com to Holloway at hollowayconstruction.com. Subject: project discussion. Kenneth, it was lovely meeting you and Patricia last night. Garrett is lucky to have such wonderful parents. I'd love to discuss potential collaboration between Morrison and your company. We have several upcoming projects that might be a good fit. Would you be available for coffee this week to talk details? Best, Sienna. Professional. Innocent. Exactly the kind of email a project manager would send. Kenneth's response came 6 hours later, from Holloway at hollowayconstruction.com to sbon at morrisondev.com. Subject, project discussion. Sienna, great to meet you too. Coffee sounds good. How about Tuesday, 10 a.m. at Blue Ridge Cafe downtown? Looking forward to it. Ken. I scrolled down. The next email was from that Tuesday. From sbon at morrisondev.com to Holloway at hollowayconstruction.com. Subject, project discussion. Ken, I really enjoyed our conversation today. You're even more impressive in person than Garrett described. I think we could do great work together. Same time next week? His reply, absolutely. Already looking forward to it. The tone shifted quickly after that. By the third meeting, Sienna was using phrases like "you understand me" in ways most people don't, and "I feel so comfortable talking to you." By the fourth week, the emails turned explicit. I won't repeat what I read. It's enough to say that every message felt like a physical blow. Descriptions of what they'd done. What they wanted to do. How good it felt to finally be together. My husband. My son's fiancée. Planning encounters around Garrett's work schedule. But the email that destroyed me completely was dated 3 weeks ago, from Holloway at hollowayconstruction.com to sbon at morrisondev.com. Subject, long term. We need to talk about what happens after the wedding. Patricia is asking questions about why I'm home late so much. We need to be smarter. From sbon at morrisondev.com to Holloway at hollowayconstruction.com. Subject, long term. What about after the wedding? Garrett will expect me to be devoted, attentive. I can't just disappear for hours. From Holloway at hollowayconstruction.com to sbon at morrisondev.com. Subject, long term. You will be devoted. To me. He's too soft to keep you interested long anyway. A few months of marriage and you'll be bored. Then we can be more open about us. From sbon at morrisondev.com to Holloway at hollowayconstruction.com. Subject, long term. And Patricia? What about her? From Holloway at hollowayconstruction.com to sbon at morrisondev.com. Subject, long term. Leave her to me. Once Garrett's locked and legally married to you, I'll file for divorce. She doesn't suspect anything. Too trusting. Always has been. You'll be my daughter-in-law for exactly as long as it takes to become my wife. 6 months, tops. I read that exchange 5 times. Each time, the words cut deeper. They weren't just having an affair. They were orchestrating a plan. Using my son as camouflage. Sienna would marry Garrett, establish herself in the family, gain access to his income and connections. Then Kenneth would divorce me after Garrett was locked and after my son had made legal vows to this woman. 28 years of marriage. Reduced to an obstacle that Kenneth would clear away once it was convenient. I thought about all the times I'd supported him. The year his company nearly went bankrupt and I worked double shifts to cover our mortgage. His father's death when Kenneth fell apart and I held him together. The bankruptcy scare in 2008 when I emptied my own retirement account to make payroll for his crew. None of it mattered. I was disposable. I forwarded every single email to my personal account. Then I deleted the sent messages from his email so he wouldn't know I'd found them. Next, I checked his phone records. He kept them filed digitally for tax purposes. Dozens of calls to Sienna's number. Calls that lasted 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. Always during times he claimed to be at job sites or meeting with clients. I photographed everything. Timestamps. Numbers. Duration. Then I did something that surprised even me. I called Sienna. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright. Patricia! Perfect timing. I was just about to call you. I have a question about the seating chart. Should we put your brother near the bar or closer to the dance floor? The casualness of her tone made my skin crawl. Yesterday, she'd been in my bed with my husband. Today, she was asking about seating arrangements like nothing had happened. That we need to meet, I said, cutting through her chatter. Just the two of us. There's something about the party I want to discuss privately. A pause. Brief, but noticeable. Oh. Okay. Is everything all right? Everything's fine. I just prefer to handle certain details face to face. Are you free today? Around noon? Yes. Yes, I can do that. Where? The coffee shop on Hartley Street. Do you know it? I'll find it. See you at noon. I hung up before she could ask more questions. I arrived at Hartley Street Coffee 15 minutes early. The place was small, local, the kind of spot where everyone knew everyone. I chose a table in the back corner, away from the windows, and waited. Sienna walked in at exactly noon wearing a pale yellow sundress that showed off her figure. She looked fresh, glowing, like a woman in love. Her eyes scanned the room until they found me, and she smiled, that warm, open smile I'd mistaken for genuine affection. Patricia, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. You look tired. Are you feeling okay? The party planning isn't too much stress, is it? I'm fine, I replied. Thank you for meeting me. She ordered an iced latte from the waitress, then turned back to me with that practiced concern. So what did you want to discuss? Is it about Garrett? Did something happen? No. It's not about Garrett. I folded my hands on the table. It's about you and Kenneth, her smile faltered. Just a fraction, but I saw it. Me and Kenneth? I don't understand, let me be clear, I said, leaning forward slightly. I know. Know what? Her voice had gone up half an octave. Everything. The emails. The phone calls. Yesterday afternoon in my bedroom, the color drained from her face so fast I thought she might pass out. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I I interrupted, my voice sharp as broken glass. I have screenshots. Photos. Recordings. I was bluffing about recordings, but she didn't know that. Her hands started shaking. She gripped the edge of the table to steady them. Patricia, please, I can explain. No. You'll listen. I pulled up my phone, opened the forwarded emails, and slid it across the table. Read. She stared at the screen. I watched her eyes move across Kenneth's words. Watched the exact moment she reached the part about her being a temporary daughter-in-law. He said he loved me, she whispered. He says that to everyone he uses. My turn to talk now. I took my phone back. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to end this affair immediately. You're going to tell Garrett the truth yourself, but only after I've had time to secure my finances and legal position. You're going to cooperate fully with my divorce proceedings against Kenneth, including providing testimony if needed. In exchange, I won't destroy your career. And if I don't? Her voice was barely audible. Then I send everything to your employer, your family, and every social media platform you use. I'll make sure everyone in this industry knows exactly who you are. Your career will be over before it begins. You'll never work in project management again. Not in Virginia. Not anywhere. The waitress brought Sienna's iced latte. Sienna didn't touch it. Why are you doing this? She asked. Why not just tell Garrett everything right now? Because I'm protecting my son from further harm. If I tell him today, in the heat of discovery, he'll make emotional decisions he'll regret. But if I wait, if I gather all my evidence first, secure my position, and then present him with facts, he'll understand I did this to protect him, not to control him. Sienna's eyes filled with tears. I really did think Kenneth loved me. That's your problem, not mine. Do we have an agreement? She nodded slowly. What do you want me to do? Nothing yet. Go home. Act normal. I'll contact you when it's time. And Sienna? I stood up, gathering my purse. If you warn Kenneth, if you give him any indication I know about this, I'll release everything immediately. Are we clear? Yes, she whispered. I left her sitting there, staring at her untouched coffee, looking like she'd aged 10 years in 20 minutes. That evening, Kenneth came home at 8:30 smelling of cologne instead of sawdust. He found me in the kitchen preparing dinner, chicken parmesan, his favorite. Hey, babe, he said, kissing my cheek. Sorry, I'm so late. That foundation issue took forever to resolve. Don't worry about it, I replied, stirring pasta. I know how demanding your work is. He grabbed a beer from the fridge, loosened his tie. Tomorrow's the big day. You ready? Almost. Just a few last-minute details to handle. Garrett's so excited. Called me this afternoon asking if I was nervous to give a toast. I told him I've been waiting 30 years to welcome a daughter into this family. He took a long drink. Sienna's special, isn't she? Very special, I agreed. He didn't catch the edge in my voice. We ate dinner together. Made small talk about the party timeline. Kenneth complimented the chicken. I refilled his wine glass. Then I said, casually, I've been thinking. For our 30th anniversary next year, maybe we should renew our vows. A small ceremony, just family. What do you think? Kenneth choked on his wine. What, renew our vows? I think it would be romantic. We could do it at the same church where we got married. Make it meaningful. He recovered quickly, that easy smile sliding back into place. I think that sounds perfect, Patty. He hadn't called me that in years. Good, I said, clearing the dishes. I'm glad you think so. That night, after he fell asleep, I went to work on phase 2 of my plan. First, I accessed our joint savings account online and transferred half, $47,000 into a new account at a different bank. Legally, half of it was mine. If Kenneth noticed, I'd claim I was setting aside money for Garrett's wedding gift. Second, I called Helen and asked for the name of her divorce attorney, the one who'd helped her leave her husband 3 years ago with full custody of the kids and the house. Margaret Brennan, Helen said. She's tough. Doesn't take prisoners. Perfect. Can you send me her contact information? Done. Patricia, are you okay? No. But I will be. Third, I made an appointment with Attorney Brennan for Monday morning, 2 days after the engagement party. Fourth, I began documenting everything. I created a spreadsheet with dates, times, phone records, email timestamps. I printed physical copies and stored them in a locked box at Helen's house. Kenneth had no idea a noose was tightening around his neck. Saturday morning arrived, the day of the engagement party. I woke early, put on my navy dress with the pearl buttons, pinned my grandmother's brooch to the collar. Looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back at me looked composed. Dignified. Completely in control. Inside, I was screaming. Helen arrived at 10 to help with final preparations. She pulled me aside in the kitchen while Kenneth was outside arranging chairs. Are you sure about this? She asked quietly. You could still cancel. Tell Garrett privately. Avoid the public confrontation. No, I said firmly. They chose to humiliate me. Now they'll face consequences publicly. Everyone who came here to celebrate Garrett's engagement needs to know why it's not happening, okay? Then I'm with you. Whatever you need. Guests started arriving at 2 o'clock. Garrett showed up with Sienna at 2:30, both of them glowing. My son hugged me tight. Mom, this is perfect. Thank you so much. My heart shattered. Sweetheart, I need to tell you something before the toast. Kenneth's voice boomed across the yard. He stood on the deck stairs, champagne glass raised. Everyone, can I have your attention? 50 people quieted, turning toward him. Kenneth looked every inch the proud father, chest puffed out, smile wide, arm around Garrett and Sienna. 28 years ago, I married the love of my life, he began. Felt my control slipping. Every word out of his mouth was a lie. We built everything together, this home, my business, and most importantly, our incredible son. Garrett beamed. Sienna looked like she was going to be sick. So when Garrett told me he'd found his soulmate, I couldn't have been happier. Sienna, welcome to our family. Applause erupted. Cheers. People raising glasses. I looked at Sienna and gave her the smallest nod. Do it now. Keep your end of the bargain. Family. You feel that tension? That's what we call the calm before the storm. Patricia has set everything in motion, it all explodes. If you're on the edge of your seat right now, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me what you think is about to happen. And if you haven't subscribed to Voice of Auntie Kattie yet, do it now. Sienna's voice cut through the applause like a blade. Wait, the crowd quieted, confused. Garrett still had his arm around her waist, thinking this was part of the celebration. Kenneth's champagne glass remained raised, his smile beginning to crack at the edges. I need to say something, Sienna continued, her voice trembling. Babe, what's wrong? Garrett asked, concern flooding his face. She pulled away from him slightly, and I watched her gather whatever courage she had left. Her eyes found mine across the yard. I nodded once more. I can't do this, she whispered. Then louder, clearer, I can't marry you, Garrett. The confusion spread like ripples on water. 50 people exchanged glances. Garrett's face collapsed. What? Why? What's happening? Sienna's next words came out in a rush, like she was ripping off a bandage. Because I've been sleeping with your father. The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear the wind moving through the oak trees. You could hear ice shifting in the coolers. 50 people stood frozen, waiting to see if this was some kind of terrible joke. Kenneth moved first, stepping toward Sienna with his hands raised. She's clearly having some kind of breakdown. The wedding dress, show them, I said, my voice carrying across the entire yard. I held up my phone. Show them the emails, Kenneth. Or should I? Every head swiveled toward me. Kenneth's face went white. Patty, you don't understand. Your father and your fiancée have been having an affair for 4 months, I said, looking directly at Garrett. Each word was precise and clear. They planned to continue after your wedding. He was going to divorce me once you were legally bound to her. They've been using you as cover for their relationship. Garrett staggered backward like I'd physically struck him. His best friend Marcus cut him before he fell. No, Garrett said, shaking his head. No, that's not Dad, tell her that's not true. Kenneth opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Tell him. Garrett's voice broke. Tell me Mom's wrong. Son, Kenneth started. Tell me. The guests erupted. Shocked gasps. Angry muttering. Someone's aunt started crying. Sienna's father pushed through the crowd, his face purple with rage. What the hell is going on here? He demanded. Sienna, what is she talking about? I'm sorry, Daddy, Sienna sobbed. I'm so sorry. Her father turned to Kenneth. You sick son of a, my brothers stepped between them before fists could fly. Helen appeared at my side, her hand gripping my elbow in support. Kenneth tried to approach me, his hands outstretched. Patricia, please, we can talk about this privately. We don't need to air, don't you dare. My voice was ice. You don't get to control this narrative. You don't get to hide what you've done. Get out, this is my house, that I helped build, I interrupted. Get out. Garrett found his voice again. Dad, is it true? Kenneth's shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of him all at once. Garrett, I never meant for is it true? Yes, Kenneth whispered. Garrett made a sound I'd never heard before, something between a sob and a howl. Marcus practically carried him toward the house. Several guests followed, murmuring comfort. "You too," I said to Sienna. "Get off my property." She fled without another word, heels clicking across the stone pathway. Her parents followed, her mother shooting me a look that was equal parts apology and horror. The party dissolved into chaos. People gathered their things. Offered me half-hearted condolences. Whispered to each other as they hurried to their cars. Within 30 minutes, the backyard was empty except for Helen, my brothers, and the ruins of what was supposed to be a celebration. I walked through the aftermath slowly. Picked up an abandoned champagne glass. Straightened a tablecloth. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. "Patricia," Helen said softly. "Let's get you inside." "Not yet." I needed to see it. Needed to stand in the wreckage and know that I'd done the right thing. He would have destroyed Garrett slowly. Used him. This way it's fast. Surgical. "You saved your son," Helen agreed. I looked at the house where Garrett was probably falling apart. I hope he sees it that way eventually. That night, I slept in the guest room again. Kenneth didn't come home until after midnight, and when he did, he went straight to our bedroom without checking on me. Sunday morning, he tried to talk. "Patricia, please. I know I destroyed everything, but we need to discuss what happens next." "If there's nothing to discuss," I replied, pouring coffee like it was any other morning. "I have a meeting with my attorney tomorrow." "You'll be served with divorce papers by Wednesday." "You already hired a lawyer?" His voice cracked. "Don't I get a chance to explain?" "Explain what?" "That you plan to divorce me after using our son's marriage as cover? That you manipulated a woman young enough to be your daughter? That you destroyed Garrett's trust because you couldn't keep it in your pants?" "I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. What you did was calculated betrayal." I set my coffee down. "I want you out of this house by tonight. Go stay with Reggie or get a hotel. I don't care which." "Patricia, if you're not gone by 6 o'clock, I'm calling the police and filing a restraining order." He left at 5:30 with 2 suitcases and a look of stunned disbelief. Monday morning at 9 o'clock, I sat in attorney Margaret Brennan's office. She was in her late 50s, gray hair cut short, eyes that miss nothing. "Mrs. Holloway," she said, reviewing the documents I'd provided. "This is extensive. You've done my job for me. I wanted to be thorough. You were more than thorough. Virginia isn't a no-fault state, which means your husband's adultery gives us significant leverage. With this evidence, we can ensure you receive the house, a substantial portion of his business assets, and permanent spousal support. I want more than that." I leaned forward. "I want him destroyed professionally. Financially. Socially." Attorney Brennan's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Let me make some calls." Over the next 8 months, Attorney Brennan was merciless. Kenneth fought the divorce initially, tried to claim the affair was a temporary lapse in judgment that shouldn't affect asset distribution. His lawyer argued that I was being vindictive. Attorney Brennan presented the emails, the phone records, the timeline showing premeditation. She brought in a forensic accountant who discovered Kenneth had been funneling company money into a separate account, money he'd planned to use for his new life with Sienna. The judge wasn't impressed. Final settlement: I got the house, 60% of his business assets, and $4,000 monthly spousal support for the rest of my life. But the real revenge came from somewhere I didn't expect. Kenneth's 3 biggest clients were women developers who'd worked with his company for years: Amanda Cruz, Jennifer Washington, and Diane Park. All 3 had built their careers in a male-dominated industry. All 3 valued integrity above everything else. When word spread about the affair, about how Kenneth had betrayed his wife of 28 years, manipulated his own son's relationship, and preyed on a woman 30 years younger, all 3 canceled their contracts. Amanda Cruz sent a brief email: "Holloway Construction no longer aligns with our company values." Jennifer Washington was more direct: "I have a son Garrett's age. What you did is unforgivable." Diane Park didn't bother with an explanation. Just terminated the contract effective immediately. Those 3 clients represented 40% of Kenneth's annual revenue. The professional community is smaller than people think. Word traveled. Other clients started asking questions. Some stayed, but many didn't. Kenneth's reputation collapsed like a house with a faulty foundation. Within 6 months, Holloway Construction filed for bankruptcy. I didn't celebrate. But I didn't cry for him either. Sienna fared worse. Morrison Development terminated her employment 3 weeks after the party. The official reason was conduct unbecoming of company values, but everyone knew the real story. She tried to find another position in project management. But in our professional community, word traveled fast. Every interview ended the same way: polite rejection, no explanation. She left Virginia eventually. I heard through Garrett that she'd moved somewhere out west. Colorado, maybe. Or Arizona. I never bothered to find out for certain. I didn't care enough to follow her story. Garrett struggled the longest. For weeks after the party, he barely spoke to me. Not from anger, but from shock. His entire worldview had been shattered. The father he'd idolized. The woman he'd planned to marry. Both of them had betrayed him in the worst possible way. I keep replaying every moment with her, he told me one night, sitting in my kitchen 2 months after everything fell apart. Wondering what was real and what was performanced. It doesn't matter, I said gently. What matters is you're free now. You didn't marry her. You didn't waste years of your life. But Dad. His voice broke. How do I reconcile the man who taught me to fish with the man who did this? You don't. You accept that people are complicated. That someone can be a good father and a terrible husband. That love doesn't excuse cruelty. Have you forgiven him? Garrett asked. No. But I've released him. There's a difference. Garrett started therapy. A good therapist who specialized in family trauma and betrayal. Slowly, over months, I watched my son rebuild himself. He kept distance from Kenneth, who made half-hearted attempts at reconciliation. Phone calls that Garrett ignored. Letters that went unanswered. Eventually, Kenneth stopped trying. On Garrett's 32nd birthday, 2 years after the engagement party, he called me with news. Mom, I met someone. My heart jumped. Oh. Her name is Bridgetchen. She's a high school history teacher. We met at a charity fundraiser for the school district. Tell me about her, I said, settling into my chair. For the next hour, Garrett talked. Really talked, the way he hadn't in years. Bridget was 29, originally from California, with a laugh that made everyone around her smile. She was patient with his emotional walls. She didn't push. She just understood. I think you'd really like her, Mom. She's nothing like he stopped at. She's nothing like Sienna, I finished. Good. Bring her to dinner Sunday. When I met Bridgetchen, I knew within 5 minutes she was different. She asked about my work at the women's shelter. She complimented the house without fawning. She treated Garrett with genuine affection, no performance, no hidden agenda. After dinner, she helped me clear dishes while Garrett took a phone call outside. He told me what happened, Bridget said quietly. With his father and his ex-fiancée. Did he? I kept my voice neutral. I want you to know I'm not here to replace anyone or fix anything. I'm just here because I care about your son. And I'd like to get to know you, too, if you're open to it. I studied her face. She met my gaze directly. No artifice. I'm open to it, I said. They got married a year later in a small ceremony at the Botanical Gardens. Garrett asked me to walk him down the aisle, a reversal of tradition that made me cry. You've always been my rock, he said. It should be you. Kenneth wasn't invited. During the reception, Garrett asked me to dance. Do you hate him? He asked as we swayed to an old jazz standard. Dad, I mean. No, I said, surprised to find it true. Hate requires energy I don't want to waste. I pity him. Because he lost us? Because he never understood what he had until it was gone. He traded a family for an affair. He traded integrity for immediate gratification. And now he's alone with his choices. I haven't spoken to him in over a year, Garrett admitted. I know, does that make me a bad son? It makes you a healthy adult with boundaries. I squeezed his hand. You don't owe forgiveness to people who refuse to earn it. 3 months after the wedding, Bridget called me at work. Patricia? I'm pregnant. I cried right there in the hospital break room. Happy tears this time. 5 years after that engagement party, I'm 57 years old. I still live in the house Kenneth built, but I've made it mine. New paint throughout, sage green instead of beige. New furniture that I picked out myself. Photos on the walls of Garrett, Bridget, and my grandson Henry. Helen lives with me now after her own divorce. We've become the sisters we always should have been, cooking together, watching old movies, supporting each other through everything life throws at us. I volunteer 3 days a week at the Richmond Women's Shelter, helping other women navigate divorce, financial abuse, and starting over. I've heard versions of my own story dozens of times. Each woman who walks through those doors carries the same shell-shocked expression I wore 5 years ago. You'll survive this, I tell them. And I mean it, but there was one final chapter to this story. One twist I never saw coming. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received an envelope at Helen's house. No return address. Inside was a thin folder and a note. Patricia, I hired someone to look into Sienna Vaughn's background. I needed to know who she really was. You should read this. Helen, I opened the folder with shaking hands. The private investigator's report was thorough and chilling. Sienna Vaughn wasn't her real name. She'd legally changed it 5 years before meeting Garrett, her birth name, Sienna Castellanos. She'd been married before at age 21, to a wealthy developer named Richard Morrison. He was 63. They married after a whirlwind 6-month courtship. 18 months later, Richard Morrison died in a boating accident on Lake Anna. Sienna inherited everything, his house, his business assets, and a $500,000 life insurance policy. The insurance investigation found inconsistencies. Richard's friends said he'd been an excellent swimmer. The weather had been calm that day. His life jacket was never found. But without concrete evidence of foul play, the investigation closed. Accidental death. Sienna collected the payout and moved to Richmond. The report continued. After Richard Morrison, there had been 2 other relationships, both with older, married men in the construction and development industry. Both relationships ended when the men died in accidents. One in a fall from scaffolding. One in a car crash on a mountain road. In both cases, Sienna had been named as a beneficiary on recently updated life insurance policies. In both cases, investigations found no direct evidence linking her to the deaths, but the pattern was clear. My blood ran cold as I reached the final page. Kenneth Holloway had updated his life insurance policy 3 months into his affair with Sienna. Increased coverage from $100,000 to $750,000. Changed the beneficiary from me to Sienna Vaughn. The investigator's note, based on established pattern, subject likely plans similar outcome for Mr. Holloway within 18 to 24 months of establishing control. I sat in Helen's kitchen, staring at those words. Sienna hadn't just been planning to steal my husband. She'd been planning to kill him. The affair, the engagement to Garrett, the manipulation, it was all set up. Once Kenneth divorced me and married Sienna, she would have waited a respectable amount of time. Then another accident. Another insurance payout. Another clean escape. I had exposed the affair to save my son's heart. But I'd also saved Kenneth's life. I called the FBI tip line that afternoon, gave them the investigator's report. Suggested they look into the pattern of deaths connected to Sienna Castellanos/Vaughn. Mentioned the updated insurance policies and the timing. 3 weeks later, FBI agents came to my door. Mrs. Holloway, we wanted to thank you for the information you provided. We've opened investigations into 3 deaths connected to Ms. Vaughn. The evidence is substantial. Will she be charged? I asked. We're building cases in multiple jurisdictions. Insurance fraud at minimum. Possibly more serious charges depending on what forensic analysis reveals. 2 months after that, Sienna was arrested in Phoenix, Arizona. The charges: insurance fraud across 3 states, conspiracy, and suspicion of involvement in the death of Richard Morrison. The other deaths were still under investigation. The news made local headlines: local woman arrested in multi-state insurance fraud scheme. Kenneth called me when he saw the news. Patricia. His voice was shaky. Did you see? I saw. That could have been me, yes. It could have. Silence on the line. Then, you saved my life. I wasn't trying to save you, Kenneth. I was trying to protect Garrett. Saving you was a side effect. More silence. For what it's worth. I'm sorry. For everything. I know you are. Goodbye, Kenneth. I hung up. Helen had been listening from the doorway. How do you feel? Like I finally understand what closure actually means. Present day that I'm 57 years old, and my life is full in ways I never expected. Garrett and Bridget's son Henry is 2 years old now, a wild-haired toddler who calls me Nana and makes me laugh every single day. They're expecting a daughter in 3 months. Kenneth remarried last year. Some woman named Jennifer he met through an online dating service. She's 20 years younger, which tells me he learned nothing. But that's no longer my concern. I wished him well when Garrett told me. And I meant it. Not because I forgive him, I don't. But because his happiness or suffering no longer affects my peace. That's the real victory. Not the house. Not the settlement money. Not even the satisfaction of watching his business collapse. The victory is waking up on a Tuesday morning and realizing I haven't thought about Kenneth in weeks. The victory is Garrett calling to tell me about Henry's first day of preschool and hearing joy in his voice. The victory is volunteering at the shelter and watching other women find their strength. The victory is being free. If you're watching this and seeing yourself in my story, if you're trapped in a relationship where you're giving everything and receiving crumbs, I want you to hear this. You are not what was done to you, you are how you rise from it. The betrayal will hurt. God knows it will hurt. Some nights you'll cry so hard you can't breathe. Some mornings you'll wake up and forget for 5 seconds before the pain crashes back down. But on the other side of that pain is a version of yourself you've never met. Someone stronger. Someone clearer. Someone unwilling to accept less than they deserve. That woman is worth fighting for. My name is Patricia Holloway, and this is how I took my life back. Family, that's the end of Patricia's story. A woman who discovered the ultimate betrayal and turned it into the ultimate redemption. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me, what was the most shocking part of this story for you? Was it the affair? The public exposure? Or the revelation about Sienna's deadly past? And if you haven't subscribed to Voice of Auntie Kattie, what are you waiting for? This channel is full of stories about courage, betrayal, revenge, and redemption. Stories that will make you feel something real. Remember this, the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming the person they couldn't break. I'm Auntie Kattie, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then, protect your peace, trust your instincts, and never let anyone make you feel small. God bless you, family.